Welcome to Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Our guest today has been in real estate his whole life and now focuses on multifamily acquisitions and underwriting. In addition to syndicating investments, he performs underwriting consulting for emerging sponsors and has been involved in over $40 million in acquisitions. Rob Beardsley leads the acquisitions component at Lone Star Capital Group. Rob, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's I'm really looking forward to this. So you're a young guy making big things happen in multifamily real estate. So to start things off, do you want to tell our viewers what are your real estate goals?
Sure.
Yeah.
My real estate goals are to continue building out my syndication business, meaning I guess specifically I'd like to raise capital to purchase up to $100 million of real estate by May of 2020.
Okay.
So hopefully the deals there. Won't stretch myself if we can't find good deals, right? Obviously at the end of the day, it's all about buying good deals. But that's the goal for sure. And also other real estate goals are to expand my consulting business. So build that out to provide quality underwriting, meaning analyses to help other sponsors determine whether the deal they're buying is good or not, and then help them structure it so that LPs, investors, can benefit the most.
For sure. So I'm always interested because some people give like a dollar volume for their goal and other people have a unit number. What directed you towards the dollar volume instead of units?
I think I think the dollars are a bit more, maybe not tangible, but maybe sexy. And, a unit could mean in Manhattan, a unit could be 500,000 per door. And then in Texas, where we primarily look, could be anywhere from 50 to 100.
Yeah, for sure. So where are you at right now with those goals?
So currently, I've been a part of about $20 million in transactions, and that's between two deals. And the hope would be to start really getting the business firing, and that way we'd have the capacity to purchase, manage about a deal a quarter.
Yeah, that sounds like decent volume. And like 2020, so we're talking right now, it's New Year's Eve 2018. So you've got, you said the end of 2020, right? Or
May 2020, so about a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll be chugging along for sure. So
Yeah.
I'll be excited to get you back on in about a year to find out where you are with your goals and then make you stick to it. So that's great.
Plan.
Yeah. So you've gone through two transactions so far, like you mentioned. What would you say is the biggest challenge you've had with those in relation to your goals?
So both deals have their own challenges, and I'd say I can get more specific about each challenge or walk through the deals themselves. But I would just say on the deal that I was a very lead actor in, raising money is really tough, and some people focus on the raising capital side of things. Some people focus on the real estate, the management, the business plan, and doesn't matter what you focus on. At the end of the day, you need to raise money to close the deal. So for us, that trying to do big deals while we're still establishing ourselves and we don't have a big equity bench of connections, that was a big challenge. But a lot of people then will tell you, don't go out and put a deal under contract where you have to raise millions of dollars if you can't do it, or if you don't think you can, or it's best to partner up with an experienced person, which I don't disagree with. Bringing people around you that are better than you and more experienced is probably the best thing to do. But basically my point is us putting that deal under contract and then forcing ourselves to go and make it happen to raise $4.5 million was the best thing for not only ourselves for the deal, but for our business in the future, because we made so many connections out of necessity. And now some of the people that we just cold called or had bumped into from a referral to say, hey, we need money in 2 weeks. Those people now, maybe they were able to help us, maybe they weren't, but now we speak to those people on a regular basis about future opportunities. So that sort of thing, putting your feet to the fire, I think is really beneficial.
For sure. So when you came up with your 100 million goal by May 2020, did you work out beforehand the capital needed to achieve that? Was that something, I need to acquire 100 million worth of real estate, so that means I have to acquire X amount of capital to do that? Did that go through your head?
Not really, actually, but I mean, if you do the math, it's probably roughly 30 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just curious because some people I've heard, that they want to do these big deals and then they work out how much money they have to raise and they get cold feet. So it's great that you went ahead and pulled the trigger and then just forced yourself to go through the capital raising process.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So so you're on your way to 100 million in acquisitions. What are some of the things you've done to date that have helped you with those goals? Like, is it you mentioned just staying on top of your database that you're building? What other things are you doing right now?
Well, so I'll talk a little bit high level about
Sure.
the meta, how to set goals and things like that, because I'm really passionate about that, and then also the specifics of what am I doing every day, every week, every month to ensure that I'm on the path. So starting from a high level, every morning I wake up and spend 2 to 3 minutes writing down what I'm grateful for, which I think it's always good to look back and ground yourself before you then write down these lofty goals. So after a little gratitude journaling, then I write down my 10 or so goals that I'm keeping up and to date with, and they're always changing. But there's the big ones like, the one we're talking about and some other ones like that. So I think keeping your goals top of mind is really important. So I write my goals down every morning. They say just the act of writing your goals down increases the likelihood of them being accomplished by about 30%. So I'm a believer in that. I think it's well worth your time. From there, more specifically, what am I doing? Like you said, just trying to build my relationships with equity because, like we talked about, you can't close a deal without money. And while I'm not really on the equity raising side of the business, I'm not a investor relations type of guy. I'm really a numbers guy. I love to be in the spreadsheets. It's a like we say, a necessary evil. And I guess the point is the act. My focus is to find great deals that raise money on their own. That doesn't really exist. No matter how great the deal is, you have to, really build that skill of speaking to investors and going out and networking. So whether that be at conferences, at local meetups, or even just cold calling different individuals or firms that allocate capital, those are things that I'm doing on a daily, weekly basis.
For sure. Have you ever experimented with a vision board, or do you find writing out the goals works best for you?
I am hoping to get a vision board going. I just haven't done it yet, but I think that's a great one.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so what are some things that you've tried in terms of trying to reach your goals that you thought would work but haven't worked? Any false starts?
False starts.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's coming to mind right now, but I would say I can think of times where I set a goal. I want to start doing something daily, and then, like you said, false start. And I do it for a day, I do it for 3 days, I do it for a week, and then I just drop it. I think one of those things I'll actually say, and hopefully by saying it publicly, I'll hold myself accountable, is at one point or few times I've said, okay, I'm going to write for 30 minutes every day, and which is a really easy thing to do. But because it's so easy, it's really hard. Getting yourself to sit down and do something every day can be challenging. And so for me, I think that would be a huge benefit to myself and my business, because personally writing things down really helps me flesh out my ideas, put them on paper. And then also writing helps me keep in contact with people and share my thoughts and bring people around me that agree with my thinking, or at least want to participate in that sort of discussion.
For sure. Okay, so let's move towards. You mentioned your two deals so far. Which one would you say is the most impactful deal you've done? Which one of the
So
two?
yeah, definitely the more recent one, which we closed in July of 2018. This
Okay.
was a 261 unit property in Northwest Houston. And we, like I said, had to raise almost $4.5 million for that. And that, like I said earlier, one of the biggest growth and lessons from that was the capital raising portion. Don't underestimate how hard it is to get people to part with their money, regardless of how great of a deal you think you have. And but even though it was a stressful time, I'm super thankful for it because of the relationships I built through that experience.
Great.
And yeah, the next point is the importance of, so while we talked about earlier how I think it's good to throw yourself into the capital raising process, just go ahead and go do it. I think it's the exact opposite for the real estate stuff. When talking about actually the deal, the underwriting, the due diligence, and the property management, asset management, takeover, all of that, please try to lay the groundwork as early as possible. One of the things my dad tells me all the time is before you're under contract, the days feel long and there's time and there's time. As soon as you're under contract, the days go by super fast, super stressful. And so everything you can do outside of being under contract everything that you do while under contract, if you can do that outside or pre-contract, go ahead and do that because it'll make the contract experience that much better. So
That's a great point. I always like to say it's like going to the gym. You do your heavy lifting first, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So with this deal in Houston, was it a broker deal or did you contact the seller directly? How'd you come across it?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty interesting story how we came upon it. We were previously to finding the deal, we were chasing a large 3 property portfolio on that same street. And I was actually just going to these assets individually, driving around, going to the management. I knew that the manager was off-site. I mean, obviously they had on-site workers, but the management firm was based in Dallas and the owner was living in Hawaii. And so I was optimistic that if I could get a hold of this owner and figure this out, contact him, make an offer, we had a deal. So I was driving around, taking cards, writing down names. And over time, as we began looking at this 3 property portfolio, we got to know obviously this neighborhood, these individual assets, the neighboring assets, the market, and that put us in a great position to really understand this neighborhood. So when that deal didn't work out for us we made an offer, it didn't work for the seller. The relationships we made through poking around at these different deals brought us to a broker who was familiar with these assets and knew of one that was actually adjacent to one of the ones we were looking at. And he said, hey, I've got a group that's looking to maybe sell. They want to go quietly. They don't have a stabilized asset. That's why they don't want to take it to market. But since you know this area well, maybe you can perform here. So we took a look at it. And since we had done all of this, like you said, the heavy lifting up front, we just plugged in the numbers. We were really confident about our assumptions for this neighborhood, for this asset in the market. And we put out an offer to the seller. We said, hey, here are our numbers. We know this. We know this is the price. And so the negotiations weren't easy, but they weren't tough. We were able to get it done, put the deal under contract, and then begin that whole process.
Yeah. So what really jumped out? What was the first thing that jumped off the page at you once you saw the deal? What was it? What was the blinking red light or green light for you?
I would say operationally, this was a really unique opportunity because all of these large assets, we're talking 150, 250, there was even a 500 unit asset that we were looking at on the street. They all either have on-site laundry facilities or they have laundry in the units, washer and dryer in the units. And so this property that we were looking at now had no laundry facility. So no central facility for tenants to come and do their laundry. And the vast majority of tenants didn't have a washer and dryer in their units. So we saw this as a huge problem, but a huge opportunity, because this meant that tenants were going off site to do their laundry, or, it's just a problem. And we also felt that that type of living situation was attracting the wrong kind of tenant. We want family tenants. We want long-term tenants that want to take care of their place and the community. And so we thought, there's no central facility. We have to put washer and dryer in every unit. So that was probably the blinking red light. But other than that, we obviously take a very holistic approach at looking at deals, and we don't get excited by cap rates. We don't get excited by rent premiums. We have to look at the full picture and see what that looks like.
So was there any other, you've got the washer and dryer. Are you guys doing like a rental approach with that, putting them in, or is that just going to be included in the base rent?
It'll be included. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll just help us be able to demand higher rents over time.
For sure. Was there any other, like you said, it wasn't stabilized. What did it look like when you guys took it over?
Good question. So we bought it at around, once we put it under contract, it was around the mid 80s in occupancy. And then throughout the contract period, it drifted lower and lower. And we ended up buying it at around 80%. And subsequently, upon takeover, we came in and we quickly wanted to change the culture of the community. And so we posted notices and let people know that, hey, you can't have trash out on your porch and this and that. And so, the people that didn't want to live in a safe, clean community, they were on their way out. So we had evictions and we had a change in the culture. And so we actually brought the occupancy all the way down to 70% in an effort to really reposition the tenant profile. And, thankfully now we're leasing up above 90% on a pre-lease basis.
Wow. Good for you guys. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's great. And obviously, just for everybody watching here, you factored in that vacancy drop because you knew you were going to have a changeover in the tenant profile. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And looking back on it, I think regardless of what deal you're buying, you probably want to factor some sort of drop upon takeover if you're going to be buying a deal that requires a little bit of a lift.
Yeah. So what kind of, for just somebody watching who's never done this, what kind of percentage, like if you're buying an unstabilized property where you need to purge out some tenants, what would be a good, vacancy rate to use? Like, do you like 70, 60%? What's your go-to?
Well, so obviously it doesn't make any sense if you're buying a product at 80% vacant and then your year one pro forma vacancy rate is 5 or potentially even 10%. So it all depends how fast you can do it, and also what your business plan is. Because since we were also since we were also planning to do interior renovations, that's also going to hurt our occupancy, since we'll be taking units offline to renovate. So you just have to look at all the factors, and we have some numbers and guidelines in our head and some formulas that we say, okay, if we're going to renovate X amount of units, we think that's going to require this amount of time. And so I've built my own underwriting model that you can plug in these different assumptions, and that will help actually ramp up your income through that stabilization period. So to answer your question, basically the way our underwriting works is if we're starting at point A, call it 80%, 75%, or maybe 85%, wherever you're starting from, that's essentially where we're going to start upon takeover, and then slowly grow that upon depending on our growth assumption. So it takes longer or shorter depending on the size of the asset as well as the business plan.
For sure. And what's your play for this deal? Like, are you guys gunning for a refinance pretty soon, or are you how do you structure the debt in terms of your business plan?
So, like you said, unstabilized deal, bridge debt. We had to go the bridge debt route, which not something we're thrilled about, but we felt that the opportunity was compelling enough to warrant us doing that. And yes, the it's a race to refi. We want to get into agency debt. return a bit of capital back to our investors, let them sleep at night, and this thing will cash flow in the mid-teens very well for our investors.
Nice. And are you looking at like a 5 to 6 year hold ish after the refi? Like what do you think's going to happen?
Well, it's anyone's best guess, but I think, like a lot of other people, I believe a recession is going to come, and potentially late 2019 or 2020, and that may throw off our desired hold period. But I would say through that, maybe a 7-year hold, but it's really just an opportunistic play. I think our investors will be very happy with the cash flow, and so anytime we'll tell them, hey, it's time to sell, they might push back, but if we know the market and we have a strong offer to achieve high returns, then we'll take that opportunity to exit, and hopefully the market will be such that a reinvestment opportunity will present itself.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned a really important, you mentioned cash flow. So, if the recession hits, like based on your underwriting and your value add, you're going to be cash flowing. You guys can ride out a storm if it comes. And you're in that safe spot. It's investors where they buy a property, they're negative every month. And those are the guys who get really hurt when tough times hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's unique about this real estate cycle as opposed to the previous real estate cycle is that lenders have really remained constrained at this point. And who knows what could happen, but since multifamily is primarily financed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, borrowers are really held to a fairly high standard, meaning 1.25 debt service coverage ratio, 1.3, and that really should keep most borrowers out of trouble. So the people who would be more at risk are with obviously higher leverage, and so that would be getting non-agency debt or bridge loans that they can't refinance when they come due. So the longer term your debt right now, and luckily multifamily has really accretive financing with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I think multifamily is a great place to be through the next recession.
For sure. So how have you profited so far from this deal? For somebody watching who doesn't know, how does a general partner make some money?
Sure. So there's a million ways to structure deals, but I'll say we went the vanilla route, the very typical retail syndication fee structure, which is an acquisition fee up front, an asset management fee that's ongoing, which we actually waive the first year to benefit our investors due to the stabilization period. And then we also participate in the profits if we perform above an 8% hurdle rate. So if we begin on not a compounding, but accruing basis, annual 8%. Once we achieve that rate, then we participate in the profits 30%. We participate in 30% of the profits above 8%. And so that's really our big incentive, is to do right by our investors. And that way we can have a chance to really get a big payout on the back end when we sell via that carried interest.
Yeah, I think based on what you've told me about this deal, the profits on the back end are going to be quite significant when you guys do exit.
Yeah, that's right.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So how has real estate getting involved in the multifamily space, how has that really set you up in your life differently from before?
So I think it really has shown me firsthand. I mean, everybody has their dreams, and one of my big dreams is freedom. I really want to be able to live where I want, do what I want, and work where I want. The joke about entrepreneurs is, okay, you're free to work 16 hours however you want, but it's to me, I think it's worth it. I do work a lot, but I get to work where I want, and I can live where I want, and if I want to travel, I can fit that into my schedule. And so I really think that the business I'm in and the way I've structured my different businesses is such that I can be free, I can travel, and I think a lot of your listeners may be here because of the cash flow, right? And cash flow is freedom, and if you can live off cash flow, then that's the true, that's a true free life. So working around that and helping investors achieve that and keeping that, in my mind every single day, I think that's something really powerful that multifamily has done for me.
Oh, that's great. So Rob, where can people find you if they're looking for some more information?
Sure. So you can take a look at LoneStarCapGroup.com. That would be my main syndication business. You can also go to greenoaks-capital.com, where that's a website that's a bit more personal to me. And also you can find out more about my underwriting consulting, and you can sign up for my newsletter, and you can hear more thoughts from me there.
No, that's great. Rob, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your success with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'll see you next time.
That sounds good. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.